Hey hunters, Lord here, back with another Monster Hunter video. Now a lot of the community, especially newer players, have been really divided over the 5th generation's games and their differences. Some hunters like Rise and Sunbreak, while many prefer World and Iceborne, but I think both are solid games that each have their own merits, and instead of comparing them, we could totally appreciate the differences in styles and play while still enjoying both games. Now, with that being said, I come before you all today to do exactly what I just said we didn't have to do, which is compare the games. Now, I want to discuss things that I think Rise and Sunbreak did better that I would like to see return in Monster Hunter Wilds. Now, before we start, quick disclaimer, these are going to be my opinions, and it's okay if you don't agree with me. You're more than welcome to discuss it with myself and the other hunters in the comments below. Just be sure to remain polite and civil with each other. Now, I know that most people prefer World, and that includes myself, and this video is not to bash Monster Hunter World or call it bad, but rather to point out the good in Rise that should be continued in future games. Now, with that out of the way, let's go ahead and get straight into it. Starting off with number 1, which is weapon design. Now, this is a pretty obvious one because this was a huge gripe that most hunters had with base World especially. Although it was somewhat alleviated in Iceborne with the layered system, many weapons in Iceborne still follow the basic metal or bone frame with just some random monster parts kind of sticky taped on to show which monster's weapon it was specifically. Take for example the Zinogre Greatsword. The Zinogre family of weapons are well known for looking absolutely incredible. They have charged lightning and cool glowing parts, and they're extremely reminiscent of the monster that it came from. As you can see with this Greatsword from Monster Hunter Rise, you can see the cool horns, really you can see Zinogre in this weapon. Now, look at this. This is just a hunk of metal with a little bit of scales and a kinda neat handle. Overall, it's pretty pathetic. Now, hopefully, the Wilds design team takes notes from Rise on this one and brings us cool and unique weapon designs for every monster and every weapon. That moves us on to number 2, which is the Endgame Farming. Now, in Rise and Sunbreak, there are very few skills that you cannot specifically try for melding a charm of, like build-up boost, for example. So the thing you end up grinding for most is materials to meld the charms, which can of course be gotten from any monster in the game, allowing all hunters to fight any monster they want, and still get the materials to meld the charms for the specific skills that they need. If you melded for a skill, you are guaranteed to at least get that skill in some capacity, meaning that the RNG on charms was mostly for slots and secondary skills. Of course, this does lead to more possible combinations, meaning more RNG overall, but at least you could guarantee yourself a certain skill and have a real chance at getting what you want. In Monster Hunter World and Iceborne, the endgame grind was for decorations, which could drop randomly from items called Face Stones. Now, if you wanted something like an Attack Plus Jewel, for example, you could only get those from the highest rarity Face Stones, which are Sealed Face Stones. These only drop from certain quests and investigation levels, which limited you to just a few monsters. Only 15 monsters had investigations that had a 80% chance to drop just one Sealed Face Stone, and a couple of the lower tier monsters, lower in quotes, had a 10% chance to drop, again, just one Sealed Face Stone. Now, only a few event quests ever guaranteed at least one every single time, and a couple guaranteed at least 2 or 3. Now let's take the best example where you get a minimum of 3 Sealed Face Stones, which is Day of Ruin, where you fight a Tempered Teostra. Each of these Face Stones has a 0.27%, no, not 27%, 0.27% chance to drop an Attack Plus Jewel. This means that it should, keyword should, take only about 370 Sealed Face Stones to get a single Attack Plus decoration. Even that is not entirely true because that just assumes that because you do it 370 times, the probability means that it will occur. The truth is that each Face Stone individually only has a 1 in 370 chance of dropping an Attack Plus, not that 370 Face Stones will drop one Attack Plus. What this means is even if every 370 Sealed Face Stones you did get an Attack Plus decoration, you would still have to farm Teostra a minimum of about 100 times. Even at optimal speeds, that's about 10 hours of farming a single monster, a single quest, non-stop, for one single specific jewel. In my personal opinion, being able to farm any monster you want and be able to meld and know that you're going to get at least a level or two of the skill that you want is much better, and I hope that Wilds kind of takes a note from Rise and Sunbreak system for the endgame grind. No, not curious augments, please. I don't even want to think about that terrible system. Hope it never comes back. Number 3, story mode co-op. Now this was another painstaking point in both World and Iceborne, as for one, you couldn't just join your friends on story missions if they hadn't already gotten to the cutscene part and watched said cutscene. There were even certain quests that had multiple things as a hunter you had to do leading up to that quest's specific cutscene, and your friends still couldn't join you to help you with it since you hadn't seen the cutscene yet. You also couldn't skip cutscenes, making second or third or any additional playthroughs a real slog, as the cutscenes take up a considerable amount of time. The developers tried to justify this as they said they spent a lot of time on the cutscenes and they wanted players to appreciate and enjoy the time and effort. While I can completely understand the forced cutscenes on a first-time playthrough, I think that if you had completed a save with all cutscenes unlocked, any subsequent save files that were created should have had the option to skip cutscenes. Now this was a complete non-issue in Rise and Sunbreak, as you could always join and play with friends, you had the option to skip cutscenes if you weren't interested or if your party had already seen them, and you weren't locked out of like the first 2 hours of the game from truly playing story co-op like you were in World. The Rise and Sunbreak story co-op and cutscene system is one I hope to see expanded on, even if it's just the way I suggested, in Monster Hunter Wilds. Number 4, lifesteal and a lack of cheesy mantles. Now, World and Iceborne had 2 major crutches that I think led to a lot of fivers taking issue with Rise being, quote, harder, those being the mantles and the health augment. While I'm not saying these are negatives, as the mantles specifically helped bring about a lot of new and exciting ways to play, and the health augment would help with harder endgame monsters and not needing to craft and use as many healing items, I think that these just became crutches for a lot of players. Instead of being punished for not learning a monster's moveset, you could simply run Rocksteady Mantle, Temporal Mantle, any level of Tool Specialist, and a health augment, and it really didn't matter if you got hit at all, in most cases. Again, I want to reiterate, I think things like the Evasion Mantle, the Impact Mantle, the different Dragon and Fireproof Mantles, the Bandit Mantle, etc., those were all unique and added pretty cool things to the game. However, the cheese mantles like Rocksteady and Temporal I felt like were a bit too easy mode for me personally. Also, Rise's counterpart to the health augment was you had to have a skill in your set called Bloodright. This skill gave you health back when your weapon attacks hit an already broken monster part, and this could be found on a specific armor set or as a level 3 decoration. This meant you had to be willing to trade in up to 3 level 3 slots or a couple armor pieces in order to fit this skill in, which is a much larger trade-off than just a single augment slot where you could get like an extra 5% affinity or 10 raw attack. You also had to first break the monster part, meaning until you did that you weren't getting any health back, and secondly, you had to be good enough with your weapon, your positioning, and your timing to continuously hit that same part in order to regain health. For me, this is a better system than just me hit monster, me have infinite HP, and should definitely make a comeback in Wilds, and if they keep the mantles, I'd say at least get rid of Temporal, maybe Rocksteady. Number 5, the weapon moveset variety. Now I know that Wirebugs weren't the most beloved addition, just like Clutch Claw, or at least having to tenderize with Clutch Claw. However, you can't deny that the flow of weapons and the insane amount of moves available to each weapon in Rise and Sunbreak is almost unparalleled in any previous game. For me personally, this was the best that combat had felt in any Monster Hunter game ever. What I truly loved was the variety. Now you and I could go on a quest together. We could use the same armor, the same weapon type, the same exact weapon, the same Palico or Palamute setup, but still have entirely different playstyles just based off of switch skills alone. I mean, each weapon had 5 different moves that had at least 2 options, with most having more than 2. This meant that you could have so many different combinations of skills and silkbinds and attacks, making one weapon able to play completely differently depending on your choices. Take for example, Greatsword. You can completely change how your combos work by switching in between the Charge Slash or Surge Slash combos. Each of these played completely differently, making Greatsword feel like almost two different weapons while using the same weapon. Now I know that this kind of customizability is a lot, and to add this many different moves for each of the weapons could get to be a lot and might not fit the flow of a non-portable series of the game. I do think that having the option to play different styles with the same weapon or bring over some of those moves and have the ability to interchange just a couple of them in Monster Hunter Wilds would be really awesome. Now again guys, this is not to bash on World and Iceborne, as that is my absolute favorite video game ever, and they did so many things right, like the immersion, the ecosystems, monster design, co-op siege events, seasonal events, and much, much more. This is more to talk about some of the good things that Rise and Sunbreak did, as I feel that that game doesn't always get the love and appreciation it deserves, since it was quite a different style from World and Iceborne. If there's anything else you guys can think of, please comment down below, as I'd love to hear your thoughts. If you did enjoy today's video, be sure to leave a like down below to support the channel entirely for free and to help share this video to other hunters. If you're new to my channel, new to Monster Hunter, or if you just liked what you saw today and want to see more, definitely consider subscribing, as that's the best way to never miss an upload. With all that being said, I want to thank you guys so much for watching today's video. I wish you all a good day and happy hunting.